Sick Harrison Price for Monday, July 14th, 2025. Almost got my month wrong. I almost got my month wrong. I'm just going to say June. I just can't believe we're 2 weeks into July already. Where's summer going? We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the historic Wall Center. In this show, a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sakaris with Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogers, and Hit and Switch is conducting things. I get a lot of questions about where you won your Junos from.
Oh, are they supposed to be real?
Well, yeah.
Oh, Chilliwack?
That's what I tell them. I said he won one for working on one of the Chilliwack albums.
The well-known Alpha Yaya Diallo won me two.
What you gonna do when I'm gone? Did you work on that one?
Fitting song, actually.
Been gone so long.
That's a different song. Everything was about being gone for Chilliwack.
Yeah. Lots of longing in Chilliwack.
Yeah. It's out there.
They played the Lions home opener a few years ago. You remember that?
They do, yeah.
While we know what becomes of Arturs Silovs in the immediate term, we're asking on our Whistler Golf Club poll question, what will become of Arturs Silovs? Period or question mark. Canucks folklore or NHL starter? You can vote at the Sick Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. Blake, big trade to discuss, but first, give me a take. What's your forecast on Silovs and whether or not this trade will come back to haunt the Canucks?
Goaltending is witchcraft. Most people will tell you that. Even Kevin Woodley will be stumped, I would guess, when asking to predict the future for Arturs Silovs. It's really hard. And for that reason, you have to say that it's Canucks folklore, because even the ballyhoot, of which Arturs Silovs has worked his way into that a little bit in terms of a known prospect quantity in the National Hockey League, but he wasn't a draft pedigreed a goaltending prospect. Even those guys, Yaroslav Askarov, Spencer Knight, Devin Levi, guys that, got all this acclaim going in. The last goal, I looked at this, the last top goalie chosen, the criteria is either top goaltender pick in the draft or first round goaltender. The last one that I can find that has already emphatically arrived, landed on his feet as a surefire NHL starter is Jake Ottinger back in 2017. Everybody since then, Askarov, Knight, I mean, the book is still open. They can still become that, but they haven't yet. It is tough to do. And so for that reason, I'm going to say that it's just going to be Canucks folklore. And that's not because I'm cheering against them. It's not because I don't believe in them. Nothing. It's just, it's really hard. It's really hard to do.
Anything but. Like, I'm cheering hard for this guy. He took us on some really fun rides. I mean, like going back a couple of years now, several years now, Blake, but it's like, what? This Canucks prospect is backstopping Latvia at the men's worlds and they're winning all these games? Like, that was fun to watch from afar.
Yeah.
Needless to say, what he did against the Nashville Predators and Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup playoffs, that was all sorts of fun. And then this past spring, taking the Abbotsford Canucks to the Calder Cup championship and winning playoff MVP. I mean, he was a breath of fresh air at a time when the organization needed some good stories, and he provided them. Plus, he seemed like he had a little bit of that goaltender quirkiness, but he seemed like a fun fellow.
Latvians are fun. Let's be real.
Oh, my God. The best fans in international hockey, those Latvians. They just make every tournament. Their spirit is unbelievable. Now, as for his NHL future, so a couple of things here. Number one, he struggled with shots from distance, especially when those shots were layered with all sorts of traffic, and that is what the National Hockey League does best. That is something the National Hockey League does that poses a big adjustment for AHL goaltenders, because guys in this league can really play, but they're also really smart and understand body positioning, understand their teammates and where shots are coming from, and the best way to get in front of that goaltender and obscure his view. That, I think, can be corrected. I mean, most...
Man, I think already in the AHL playoffs, and I grant it's the AHL playoffs this past year, not the NHL. You'd be stupid if you were one of the opposing coaches and not try to get that through to your players. 5 different coaches that faced Arturs Silovs in these AHL plays undoubtedly communicated that weakness to their shooters, and none of them were able to figure it out.
Now, so there's that part, but again, that's a correctable weakness. The one thing that gave me greater pause about Arturs Silovs and his future with the Vancouver Canucks is what we saw this past year. And granted, some of that was playing before a defense that was not good enough when it came to puck transportation, and I think he fell victim a little bit to the way the Canucks played and their personnel back then, which wasn't really suited to winning a lot of hockey games. And, of course, he did not win many last year, just the 2, both against one of the league's lesser thans in the Chicago Blackhawks. But from talking, and we'll have Kevin Woodley on the show here, but from talking to Kevin over the years about Arturs, this was not a player who was able to perform in the backup capacity. Silovs' best work came when he was playing every other night as an unquestioned starter. We not only saw this in the NHL this past year with the Canucks, we also saw it in the AHL over the years when he was forced to split time with Nikita Tolopilo. What happens in the playoffs? He's playing every couple of nights, and you get the best of Arturs Silovs. So I'm not sure how one goes from being an AHL star goalie to an NHL star goalie without that stop that most of them make as the NHL backup, where you have to play infrequently and you have to have a game that is sharp on the nights that your number is called. So evaluating the Canucks goaltending depth chart, and of course Demko and Lankinen playing in the National Hockey League. Yeah, let's see you sneak him through waivers, and he's getting his great run of AHL games, and he's playing well again. Fantastic. You already know that. You needed this guy to be an NHL-capable backup, and the funny part is like, I think he might be a more capable NHL starter than he is an NHL backup, but I don't think that was going to happen here.
Well, I was just going to say, like, when you hear that description, which you're right about, doesn't the yin to his yang, Kevin Lankinen, who looks way better, not so much spot starter, but infrequent, like those two, they've got each side of the amethyst. They create a great puzzle piece, but who's got the stones to say, we're going to make Silovs our NHL starter with Lankinen as the backup? While in theory, that sounds great because one thrives on lots of work, one thrives on less. You're not going to make that evaluation as the Vancouver Canucks. You're going to put your money where you know it's safest, and that is with Demko and Lankinen. So, I don't think anybody begrudges it.
No. Well, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we had a good discussion about this, and I got to say, like, I understand those Canucks fans who are feeling underwhelmed and disappointed by this deal. The NHL goalie marketplace, particularly for a player who requires waivers to be sent to the farm, is not exactly robust. No. It is not exactly flush with plum assets the team are willing to send you. Look, the fact of the matter is, though, is that Silovs was a different kettle of fish than a lot of other, goaltending prospects. I mean, I'm looking at this Noah Strang tweet, just 24 years old, but look at his trophy cabinet. Bronze World Championship medal for Latvia, World Championship's best goalie and MVP, Calder Cup MVP, and 5 NHL playoff wins, which, as Noah points out, is sixth all time for the Vancouver Canucks, which is just bananas. So, yeah, I losing him for a mid-round pick and a prospect, and we will get to the prospect here in a second, seems a little underwhelming. But the bottom line is I think they did the best with the hand they were dealt here.
Yeah, it was sort of no better, no worse than what I expected. It was pretty much right on the money because it's a very fickle, weird goalie market.
And the daily poll question brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club, now taking bookings for any time during the 2025 season. The prime times are filling up fast. Whether you're golfing or just visiting Whistler, check out Palmer's Gallery Bar and Grill the beautiful patio that overlooks the 18th green there at the Whistler Golf Club for some shade, some tranquility, home of Whistler's best burger, plus some awesome local beer. If you have a group of 12 or more, tell them about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. And I know they will be out there pouring at Ribfest in Port Moody this weekend. Artie party over. Canucks deal Silovs to the Pens for a one-time first-round pick and forward Chase Stillman and a fourth-round pick in the 2027 NHL draft. As we've discussed, they stood to lose Silovs on waivers at the roster deadline with Demko-Lankinen, of course, under contract and expected to be healthy and form the goaltending duo. The goaltending market, not lucrative at the best of times, especially for a goalie who isn't NHL established. They did do better than the Montreal Canadiens did in dealing Caden Primo, who has some NHL time, and the Columbus Blue Jackets did when trading Daniil Tarasov to the Florida Panthers. This from Canucks News Summary. The Penguins were the most obvious destination for Silovs. They only had, that's Delta's Tristan Jarry, listed on their roster. For the Canucks, a fourth-round pick is the ceiling you'll be getting for Silovs. They got more for him. And yes, let's spend a minute here. Patrick Allvin in the release, quote, "We wanted to give Silovs an opportunity elsewhere as we feel we are very well positioned in goal at the NHL, AHL, and developmental level." And yes, Patrick Allvin had been dropping the name, as had Jim Rutherford of Ty Young, the one-time Prince George Cougar that's now in the Canucks organization and did quite well last year in his first professional season, the ECHL, AHL. They also, of course, drafted Alexei Medvedev in the second round of this past entry draft, not to mention Aku Koskenvo, who's coming from Harvard now, Finnish goaltender and draft pick of a couple of years ago. They still have Yuri Patera in the fold. That's a guy who's got some NHL games under his belt. Of course, Tolopilo here as well. Let's get to Chase Stillman for a second here, Blake.
Well, we should, Matt, because we need to differentiate just a little bit. Like, I'll beg to differ on the Canucks did better. We have no idea. We have no idea until we see what Chase Stillman turns out to be. We also have no idea what Kyle Dubas thinks on the other side of this deal. In his mind, them taking Chase Stillman might be of actually just great help to him. Getting one last contract on the books for him for next year, allowing him to take contracts on as the season goes on, that might have been a benefit to him. He might have asked to make sure that a body went the other way, a guy that is now ebbing at an all-time low, having been a first-round pick, coming off of a full season in which he scored 4 goals. So, it may not be that the Canucks, quote-unquote, did better than those other two teams. This might have been, you have to take this guy, and we'll give you the 4th-round pick. It might have been that.
Pittsburgh is showing 47 contracts right now on the limit of 50. They have 24 one-ways, if I'm not mistaken, so they'll have some money buried in the minors. Chase Stillman was the 29th overall pick in the 2021 National Hockey League entry draft out of, he's by the New Jersey Devils, we should also say. He was not a Pittsburgh draft pick. He's born in St. Louis, of course. He's got NHL bloodlines there with his father, Corey. Came up through the Peterborough minor hockey system, then made his way to the Ontario Hockey League with the Sudbury Wolves. He has represented Canada a couple of times at the U18 and World Hockey Under 17 Challenge. Ultimately finished his major junior career back home in Peterborough with the Petes before embarking on the AHL side of things. He played for the Utica Comets. You want to flash back there? Of course, Utica no longer the Canucks farm team. Began there in the American Hockey League in 23-24, where he had his his better season of the two AHL campaigns.
Nothing wrong with that as your rookie pro season.
No, 24 points, 14 goals in 54 games, and your rookie pro season was fine. It's what happened this past year, where he winds up playing 65 AHL games, split between Utica and Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and puts up just the 4 goals, just the 12 points, even got into a couple of playoff games, and there were zeros there as well. He's a right shooter, 6'1", 185 190 pounds, winger, and at this stage of the game, with 121 AHL games under his belt, 18 goals and 36 points, he would project as an energy-checking bottom six forward.
Yeah, he has the excuse with Utica. They were 31st out of 32 AHL teams in terms of offense last year. So he wasn't exactly playing with an electric team. I looked at their team through their top point getters on that low team were all journeymen. Like, they're not prospects. They're not electric young players, playing with chutzpah and drive. Like, these are all journeyman guys, undrafted journeyman players. So that was pretty unique. The problem, the warning flag goes up where he gets traded to a better middle of the pack team in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and the stacks actually got worse. So, we'll see. We'll see what he can be. The work ethic, you like to hear that, and maybe the clean slate will do him well. And he's still young. So nobody's saying what he is or isn't, but everybody's got a temperature reading as a prospect as to whether or not they're hot, warm, or ice cold, and his is lukewarm at best, I would say, right now, based on where he came out of the draft. So
he was actually at one point this past season recalled by the New Jersey Devils, but he was a healthy scratch and did not get into a game. And then at the deadline, he was moved along with the rights to a drafted prospect to Pittsburgh, including a third-round pick, and the Penguins in exchange for Cody Glass. So Cody Glass, of course, he's in Canucks lore as well, right? The guy they would have selected. Right. Cody Glass and a second player went to Pittsburgh in that went to New Jersey in that trade with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So he's already been traded a couple of times. Of course, his brother, Riley Stillman, was a Vancouver Canuck for a hot minute there. Riley played 32 games for the Canucks in 22-23 before being moved on to Buffalo. Riley came over from the Chicago Blackhawks in the Jason Dickinson trade when they were getting that salary.
Should be some minutes for in the AHL and the Abbey forward ranks, because they said goodbye to a lot of their journeymen after the Calder Cup run. Now they re-signed a couple of more, and Mackenzie McEachern and others. But I think there's one or two spots there, certainly, especially if you expect any graduation from all those players that we've talked about, the Baineses and Carlsons of the world. If those guys graduated, even more minutes available there for Stillman to find his legs.
I would think so. So now the other dominoes that fall here. The Canucks now can set a full roster of 23 players and be cap compliant, or they can go with the 22. The maximum is 23 when they're setting the roster at the end of the preseason. Now, much can happen between now and then, including injuries and looking at your injured lists, and not to mention there could be just flat player movement between now and then.
Yeah.
But Canucks News Summaries has done the math. For example, they can have one player over the league minimum or two league minimum contracts. So one of Mancini or Wielander plays, or both Pierre Olivier Joseph and Archibald Baines makes the roster. There are going to be several ways that you can go about cutting that opening night roster and lineup for the Vancouver Canucks. I suspect some of it will also have to do with protecting assets like Linus Karlsson, who would require waivers. So we'll see how they hash it out. But the offshoot, small benefit here to the Vancouver Canucks in terms of roster setting and cap compliance. And should now note, and Blake, haven't been able to say this in a while, the Vancouver Canucks have 3 picks in one round in a draft coming out. Long time before we get there, but 3 picks in the 4th round of the 2027 draft. Blake, dare to dream, buddy.
Yeah, went down the rabbit hole on this again just to reinforce what we already know. A 10% chance that a 4th round pick plays 100 NHL games. Not as a star, not as a...
Just any kind of games.
Any kind of participation. So a 1 in 10 chance that they play 100 games at the NHL level.
Last time they've had 3 picks in any round in an NHL draft, 2023, they had 3 4th rounders that year, walked away with Ty Mueller, Vilmer Ulrichsen, and Mueller's played NHL games. And Matthew Perkins, so just a couple of years ago, but just so odd to go on that Canucks page and see their draft capital going forward and to see actually multiple picks.
Hey, they're free lottery tickets. We've talked about this. They're
exactly.
Scratch and wins. They are scratch and wins, and you don't say no to them.
And you might peddle them too, right? Like they're without a third-round pick next year. They're without a second-round pick in 2027. They're without a seventh-round pick next year. So they only have 5 draft picks for next year.
On the cap hit, and you talked about the machinations that can still happen. One of those is another bit of player movement, Matt. And maybe we'll pull this week here. Is there another material roster trade? Do you think this summer for the Vancouver Canucks? I still believe there is.
Yeah. I am a little more skeptical, and maybe it's a twice bitten. Or once bitten, twice shy thing with regards to everybody predicting big player movement and trades this summer. I'm sort of a believe that when I see it.
And that's totally fair, yeah.
Now, I do think a Marco Rossi trade is going down at some point. I would be surprised if that's not the case, whether or not the Vancouver Canucks are the team that's going to be in the mix and land that player is one. Again, I'm going to bring a healthy dose of skepticism. 2, I think all of the Canucks front office messaging, particularly Patrick Allvin, and talking about how comfortable that Adam Foote is with Elias Pettersson and Philip Hedl, is sort of geared towards, okay, we don't want to overpromise here. Let's underpromise. And if we make a trade, then we're over-delivering. So I get the sense that the Canucks front office doesn't think they're going to be able to land Rossi or a second-line center. So right now I'd probably vote no on that, if you're asking me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to be surprised.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's going to be a great trade, that it's necessarily going to improve the Canucks. I just feel like this management group feels that pressure to make a more material change going into the season. But we'll see. Can't force it. Can't make a trade that's not available. So you'd like to talk about...
I'm going to try and make it to Rib Fest this weekend.
Are you?
Port Moody. Yep.
Have you done that before?
I have been at the tasting room for, yes. Long and yes.
Okay. All right. That's not the only festival that's coming up. The
wow.
Craft and Country Mountain Festival is coming up July 19th at Big White. Michael Jace putting on a Craft and Country Mountain Festival. So you can join neighborhood there as well. Yellow Dog Spirits, as they pour samples with a side of food, live music, and a beautiful mountain landscape. That's coming up in 5 days' time. Still time to make some plans. Head up to Big White. They've got a bike park there now, too, in the summer. So go check it out. Grab your tickets now and drink some Yellow Dog in the mountains.
National Hockey League schedule is coming out here, folks, over the next couple of days, and we've already found out the lineup for opening night in the NHL. It goes down October 7th with a triple header. It is banner night in South Florida as the Panthers raise a second straight Stanley Cup banner against Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. We then get Mike Sullivan's glorious return, if you will, with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Rangers facing off. The game's in New York, but he'll face his old players that he led to 2 Stanley Cup championships in Sydney, Gino Letang et al., and it ends with a West Coast affair and West Coast start time with the Colorado Avalanche and the Los Angeles Kings. That's Tuesday, October 7th, the beginning of the NHL season, and we will have the Canucks schedule coming here over the next 24 or 48 hours. Are those the only 3 games that are going on that day, or are we going to have other games in and around that? It's an ESPN triple. I'm going to guess Sportsnet going to have something, right? Like,
I don't know.
Sportsnet's not just doing those American teams on opening night, are they?
That's just
please tell me Canada gets to. Yeah,
maybe.
Please tell me Canada gets to participate on opening night here.
Yeah, that would be
in
weird
the
if they didn't.
NHL.
Yeah,
it would be, and who knows? The Canucks could feature on that evening. Oftentimes, see them playing Calgary on opening night.
That's right.
So
of late,
we'll see if that.
Arturs Silovs, of course, the last time out. So that won't be happening this time around.
So that goes into the Arturs Silovs folklore, right? It's not just the Calder Cup championship. It's not just being thrown in as the third string goalie to that Nashville Predators series when Thatcher Demko and Casey DeSmith.
He was an opening night starter. Yeah.
Okay. He was an opening night star, and nobody said boo. Like, in fact, we talked to people all last August, September, who should be the opening night star. Oh, Artie has earned it with his playoff performance.
Well, remember,
he had
no Lankinen at that time, right? So you have to put that into the back of your mind as well. No Lankinen on the Canucks at that point, right? That's a short time later that they get Kevin Lankinen.
Well, they had him before opening night, obviously, but yes, he
hadn't been fully up to speed yet. So
right. They signed him late in the schedule. Yes. And let me correct myself. Canucks schedule Wednesday, not tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm being told.
Okay.
So,
but yeah, so if Demko's still on the comeback trail, and like, of course it was Silovs. You're right. Nobody would have argued because there was no other option. It was Patera.
Yeah. No, I thought Lankinen was the backup that night, wasn't he?
Was he? Had he made his way up to that? Okay. All right.
Yeah. But but you're coming off the playoffs and everyone was in love with Arturs Silovs, right? And everybody thought he deserves it after what he did for the team under very difficult circumstances, being dropped into the middle of that playoff series. So anyways, we've come a long way, baby. Both Arturs and the Vancouver Canucks themselves, although the particulars, Demko and Lankinen, going to make for a familiar tandem. We saw them both a lot last year, just not oftentimes together because of Thatcher's help.
If they hit it out of the park this year, both of these guys have at least career average years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Canucks goaltending is going to be in great shape, and the Silovs trade has no risk attached to it. Like, if you get a couple of years here of these guys playing reasonable amounts of games, playing at minimum their career averages, I don't think anybody can relitigate this Silovs trade down the road. It just makes sense for the Vancouver Canucks to do this right now. And again, that's on the bare minimum. If either of Demko or Lankinen plays above their career average, then it was absolutely the right choice for the Vancouver Canucks. So.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of goaltenders, and we're going to continue to unpack the new CBA here, drip by drip, drab by drab, because needless to say, it is quite a document. And yes, it takes some sifting through to get to all the finer details. But I saw Greg Wyshynski, and we knew this was coming, has the details on the new EBUG procedure, Blake Price.
The must-nots.
The EBUG procedure, and these are stories that Blake and I have indulged in over the years, and they tend to be incredibly fun stories, right? We had one here with Chris Levesque once upon a time. There was one in Toronto that continues to be marked by anniversary, and the Carolina Hurricanes time after time. So we knew that the NHL was going to a more permanent EBUG program. They didn't want to be left scrambling, right, and calling guys in on short notice. So here's what you've got. EBUGs are now going to be carried with the team. Here's where they cannot have gone, and that is played an NHL game on a standard player contract. The EBUG contract is not a standard player contract.
ATOs,
so if you,
PTO or ATO.
Right. If you have EBUG'd in the past, if you have tried out in the past, you're eligible. But the second you sign a real McCoy NHL contract, you are no longer EBUG eligible. You can't have played more than 80 pro hockey games, and that is pro hockey games around the world, is my understanding, not just the National Hockey League and the American Hockey League.
So that basically means you can't have had a pro career. Like
basically.
You tried it, didn't work, and that's fine, but you can't have had a real career, per se.
I was a little surprised by this one. Have played pro hockey the prior 3 seasons. Why do we want to limit this to guys who are 4 years out?
Yeah. 2 maybe?
I thought that was a little odd.
Yeah.
Like, do you not just have a rust build up at that point? Like,
they want to make sure you're bad enough.
I guess so.
Basically, we want to lower this bar here a little bit.
This one is interesting. Have another contractual obligation that would preclude them from serving as an EBUG. Oh, you need me to EBUG tomorrow. I'm sorry, I promised the wife. wait a sec, you're not allowed to have a contractual obligation. My marriage is a contractual obligation. So I guess this means that they can't like travel for work or be off-site, off-premises at all.
You can't be a crown prosecutor that has
no
court date.
No, I guess not. If your presence is required somewhere other than the EBUG crease, you may not qualify.
What they are sounding like, what this description is, Matt, is you must have been a guy with some goaltending history that otherwise would be playing video games in their mother's basement, if not for this opportunity. Because if you have any sort of career, you're probably going to have a time carving out all this time, because there's a time commitment here. So you basically have to be a jobless one-time pro.
Well, but barely pro. It's almost like they've set up these rules to have purely, or not purely, mostly amateurs here, right?
I do wonder.
Like, for example, bullpen catchers, Blake.
Yeah.
You can have play. Now, look, a bullpen catcher is not ever getting into a game, and perhaps that is the distinction. But you look at who serves as the bullpen catcher for Major League Baseball teams. It is oftentimes guys who have recently retired from pro ball, whether that's more often than not minor leagues, or maybe that's overseas in Japan or Korea. But it's basically former professionals who are getting their start in coaching, and they go out and they travel with Major League Baseball teams, or they serve as bullpen catchers at home. I would have thought we would have been looking at the same sort of stream for the EBUGs, like recently retired pros who can, if called upon, step into the fore and hopefully not embarrass themselves, so the teams deliver a base level of goaltending that someone without that sort of experience would not be capable of.
So, Matt,
it's not the case here.
I'm worried about the incumbent EBUG, or one of the incumbent EBUGs up until this point. Paul Dolan's son, former SFU goalie, has been a Canuck EBUG on most nights. He is just coming off his first dip of the toe in semi-pro Australian League hockey. And now he's apparently headed to the Federal Professional Hockey League in the Midwest of the United States. Again, I think semi-pro. So I don't even know where does semi-pro land. They pay expenses, but you don't get a salary in a lot of these cases. Does that count? I have no idea.
Yeah. And again, these are guys who are full-time members of the team now. Like, every team is going to have an EBUG who is meeting this criteria that, plays and travels and practices and all of those things. And we talked about this when we first heard that the EBUG criteria was going to change. The one thing I'm glad they finally solved after all these years, because I'm nearly 25 years now with an eye on the NHL, and the number of times that you've had to throw a trainer or an equipment guy into the cage at practice was ridiculous. And some of them actually had some background in playing goal and whatnot, and so they served the purpose. But I couldn't get over the fact you had these multi-million-dollar businesses, and if a goalie couldn't go at practice, it was throw somebody into the cage as though that was any kind of a facsimile. At least these EBUGs are going to give NHL shooters in practice a little bit tougher a ride than just, do we have somebody in the building who has ever played goal? Can you strap on the pads for an hour today at practice? That always struck me as a little bit weird.
Well, who was the Canuck trainer that used to do that? He was actually apparently pretty good. He was
Jamie.
I thought there was a Dan or something like that. But anyway, he apparently very, very good in his own right, but it wasn't the EBUG, just a practice goalie. So
yeah. But that's it. The practice goalie was needed, right?
Yeah.
Think of it. Major League Baseball, you got somebody who throws batting practice, right?
It's not really even practice goalie often. It's usually game day skate goalie is the problem, because often both goalies are comfortably at practice, and the third goalie is actually annoying. Most coaches will say, but game day skate, the starter often is only out there for 5 minutes, and then you do still want two goalies often, and you don't have that available. So that's the problem.
All right. So there's the new procedure when it comes to the EBUGs, and so the bottom line is here, Blake, the story has lost a little bit of its charm, right? Like the Chris Levesque story is not happening again, which is,
I don't know. This almost sounds like less accomplished goalies, so maybe it's not. Who knows?
Well, except for it's not a kid who has just dropped into the team that day.
Right. The collegiate
and is
guy,
living out
yes.
like the NHL draft. Like I remember San Jose coming through here once, and some kid who had played major junior goalie and lived here in town was dropped into the San Jose Sharks dressing room, sat on the bench as the backup goalie, and the guys in the room afterwards were kind enough to pass the hat and top him up a little bit. And that was a fun story. But, when the guy is a member of the team and traveling around, then he's sort of a member
Carolina
of the team.
guy, the Zamboni driving Carolina EBUG, things similar to that are still possible. If you're going to get a, paunchy 42-year-old, ex semi-pro guy.
I suppose.
You never know.
I suppose. More changes to the CBA. The amount of salary that you can bury in the minors, that is going up. Not this season. Of course, this deal takes effect next year, so it's going to be up to $1.225 million that you can bury in the minors come 26-27, and then that's increasing by $50,000 increments year after year. I believe we've mentioned that the NHL's minimum salary is also
so that's
going to increase. Right. So it goes up to $850 for the start of this deal and will be $1 million. That'll be the minimum salary in the NHL, $1 million for the 29-30 season going forward. So there you have it. Some more new details as everybody digests this new CBA from the NHL Board of Governors and, of course, the National Hockey League Players Association going forward. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games home and away. You are mere steps away from the stadium or the arena, but it's an even better spot to host your summer party. If you've got a team building event, a family reunion, if your ball team wants a place to go and have a night, check out Greta. It's got an amazing menu filled with delicious food, the smash burger, a personal favorite, and the arcade. Hours of fun, a game for everyone, air hockey, Pop-A-Shot, plus all the video game titles that you know and love. Check it all out at 50 West Cordova, and for more info and to book that event, go to gretabar.com. Greta, let the games begin. Well, we had an Arturs Silovs trade. We had to go to the goaltending expert. Kevin Woodley of InGoal Media is going to join us here and break down everything about the trade. Plus, we wanted to know more about the situation with Chase Stillman and, of course, at the AHL level. And Dave Hall of Canucksarmy does such an amazing job of covering the Abbotsford Canucks and prospects across hockey that we got Dave on the show here as well. Later in the program, we will talk about the BC Lions' huge victory in Edmonton yesterday. Boy, Nathan Rourke looked fantastic. Looked like he was back to his old self. And James Butler with a day for the ages on the ground for the BC Lions. Alas, the news is not as good for Vancouver Whitecaps FC, who take a drubbing down in Denver. And we have reached the All-Star break in Major League Baseball. There's some comings and goings with the Vancouver Canadians, the Toronto Blue Jays, who drafted a couple of Canadian kids, local kids, British Columbians here, heading their way to the Toronto Blue Jays via the draft. And the Seattle Mariners on a bit of a heater entering the All-Star break as well. Too bad Cal Raleigh didn't get a chance to tie the record for home runs before the All-Star break, although I'm sure he will feature. I've even seen Jeff Passan of ESPN, who is like the baseball reporter now, with a story about, Cal Raleigh's hidden little secret, Seattle's little secret gem that, most people don't stay up late enough to watch him play. Well, he's going to get the full national media exposure here with all those home runs heading into the All-Star break down there in Atlanta. Time now for our Bet 365 bets of the day, and I looked at all the injuries, especially along that offensive line, and I had my doubts about the Lions yesterday in Edmonton, especially with the Elks coming off their first win of the season. Mayor of Wrongville wrong, Man, BC was full value there. So Blake, lead us off here.
Although I missed mine too, Brian White. He had nobody to beat but the goalie at one point, and still couldn't slot in the bet that I needed. But I'm going to turn to the Whitecaps again with their midweek match versus the Houston Dynamo. Pedro Vite. I would say odds are that he will not be a Whitecap for this match. Mulling an offer right now, most likely from Pumas, based on all reports. And if he opts to accept that, I think the Whitecaps could be doing some navel gazing at that point. It's not a huge number, but I would do the hedge bet here. Houston plus 120 to beat the Whitecaps. It hurts, I'm sure, for Whitecaps fans, but it might just be the right bet to make.
I'm looking at the Major League Baseball Home Run Derby. The aforementioned Cal Raleigh is the favorite at plus 275. He's probably worth the shout here to see if he can, continue to be the standout star of this Major League Baseball season. The other kid I'm looking at, are you familiar with James Wood in Washington? Their young outfielder. Guy's a monster. He's like 6'6". I would suspect that this probably means more to him as a young guy who's making his all-star debut than it would to some of the more veteran names on this list. So he's plus 400. Give me him as well to win the Home Run Derby later today. Bet365, where whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Kevin Woodley coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And was last night a perfect scenario for a Simply Spiked. It was hot where I was. It was so hot, sweltering. Hot. And I don't feel like anything heavy. I want something light, palate refreshing, crisp. And the Simply Spiked lemonade just hit the spot for me. Over ice, so yummy. And because you got the various variety packs, limeade, lemonade, peach, and several flavors mixed into that, you never get bored of it either. So go pick up your mix pack today. 5% alcohol, contains real juice.
That's it, the real juice. Real juice on the hot summer day as well. We took some to the lake, the water on Saturday. Very, very refreshing.
Celebrate responsibly.
I'm down with
must
the
be 19 years of age.
Yes, sir. Let's bring in Kevin Woodley of InGoal Media, the goaltending guru of the National Hockey League, who joins us after this Arturs Silovs trade. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. It's good to catch up with you guys. It's been kind of a strangely busy, maybe surprisingly so, summer in the goaltending front locally.
Yeah.
So, some more
Especially
news.
the Canucks, man. The Canucks are keeping the goalie guys busy here. So, first off, look, as we explained in our first segment, this was a textured trade, right? Like, I know there are a lot of Canucks fans out there sweating losing Artie because of what he's done for the organization at two levels for, a prospect who may never be in a mid-round pick. But there's all sorts of context wrapped around this trade, Kev. How did you see it?
Well, yeah, I thought they did okay. And I'll be honest, guys, I couldn't spot you Chase Stillman if you spotted me a picture in a police lineup, right? So, I don't know, and I won't pretend to know much about the prospect yet. Obviously, dig in, read some interviews, and see things like that and see if there's anything, if there's a there. But at the end of the day, even a fourth-round pick is a little better than I thought they would do, just based on what Daniel Tarasov went for to Florida from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I think, interestingly enough, when I was asked about potential destinations for Arturs after the Calder Cup final. I had an eye on Florida just because I know that the goalie department there, with Roberto Luongo at the top of it, Leo Luongo a big part of it in the development and scouting, sort of evaluate goaltenders in a similar fashion to what Ian Clark does here. And so it was interesting to me that I thought, hey, I wonder if they might look at Arturs and see a guy that they see upside remaining in. And interestingly enough, they went for another Ian Clark drafted goalie, Daniel Tarasov in Columbus, who is, again, in this market, people will be like, well, like Arturs is worth way more than Daniel Tarasov. And again, in the goalie world, Daniel's pretty highly regarded. This is a guy who at the age of 20, people were comparing to Pecorine with better technique. So it hasn't panned out for him yet. This is the reality. Eventually, you run out of time, and a highly regarded prospect requires waivers. For Columbus, Daniel Tarasov, that was last year. And they kept him in the NHL and really kind of stalled his development because they were worried about losing him on waivers. So they kept him in the NHL, barely played him. He needed to play. If there's a criticism to be had over the Arturs Silovs thing, it would be the fact that he got to age 24, had 5 seasons in North America of professional hockey. And this was a criticism that would go across 2 regimes here in Vancouver, and still is at like 110 American Hockey League games total. And so there were times where his development was stalled by a lack of playing time, and so maybe you would have been further along knowing what you had here. But at the end of the day, this is a goalie who had a great playoff run, deserves tons of kudos, has shown that he can rise to the occasion in big pressure moments, the playoffs, the World Championships. And I've got another key on those that I think we need to be cognizant of. But he's shown he can do that. And yet in the National Hockey League, it's an 861 last year in tough circumstances. Because don't forget, most of his starts were when this team lost its defensive identity. And so for a team that wants to win this year, for a team that keeps telling us there were only 6 points out of the playoffs, like the difference between playoffs and not playoffs last year, you could make a fair argument is what they got out of the backup position when Arturs was the backup, right? Like 2 wins in, I believe, 9 or 10 starts. Go 500 there, and we're talking about being right on that playoff bubble. So there was no way in my mind, given how last year went, even with the playoff run, that they were running him back in the National Hockey League, given their stated goals of making the playoffs again. And so that meant waivers or a trade, or you risk losing him for nothing.
In the NHL, centers and right D are the bells of the ball these days. People will move heaven and earth to acquire those things. Why has goaltending taken the hit that it has in terms of the trade market? We forecasted this long before this trade happened. Folks, reduce your expectations on what you're going to get for Arturs Silovs because, this is a nice goaltending prospect here that the Penguins are getting, and yet it's really middling return and middling return in the grand scheme of things, not for a goalie. For a goalie, it's actually decent return as you talked about, but it's just not what you'd expect for a guy that, Kevin, he could get plugged into the 5th game of the season here and steal them a win. Like guys that can single-handedly be in charge of victories this coming season still only get this.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's the unpredictability of it, right? Like the uncertainty and the difficulty in predicting it, right? Like, so I do think you can mitigate that somewhat when you have adjusted numbers and when you understand the context of what these goaltenders have done relative to shot quality. And I would say that, like, with all due respect, because, again, he was incredible in the playoffs. And anytime he's been in a starter's role and gotten on an extended run and gotten to sort of just go play and stop thinking, he's had success. And I think that's what I was mentioning before. Like, that's not a coincidence. I had a couple of goalie coaches, evaluators around the league. When I started asking what the value was here and what they could expect in return and how he was perceived around the league, that was one of the things that I got back. Like, hey, World Championships, he's the guy. 2 years. Playoffs last year, after he went in, he was the guy. He just got to roll with it. Playoffs in the American Hockey League this year, he was the guy. And so you give him that opportunity to roll with it, and he's capable of this, absolutely. But does he project to be that guy in the National Hockey League? And if not, if he's your backup, can he give you that quality when it's once every 10 days instead of, 10 in a row? And there are some questions there. And so it's a really tough league to get a foothold in when you're coming off an 861 save percentage in spot duty. Like, that's a really tough thing for teams to commit to, and there are only a handful willing to do so. The Penguins may be one as one of the few sort of, pure rebuild, no intention of going for it this year squads, and they know where the flaws are. They think they can fix and mitigate some of them. I've had this conversation already with people in Pittsburgh's goaltending department. But overall, where the value, I think where it drops, Blake, is, and I'd be curious to see what, I guess John Gibson would be the equivalent. Like, where's the value for, I think the value for proven, established, high upside NHL goaltenders, we might start to see that go up. Yep. Because this was the first time in years that we did not have the annual game of musical chairs on July 1st. And so there's two lessons from that. Maybe the prospect value is still a little thin, but proven guys, are we going to see a spike there because you can't go get a fix for a number one on the market? And in that case, you better be building what the Canucks have done here, a pipeline that allows you to say, man, like, we'd really like to have Arturs Silovs in our fold, but we think we're going to lose him on waivers, so let's get something for him now because we're confident that we have 2 or 3 more guys coming up behind him, and you're constantly feeling good about what's coming up through your... You have to be that team. I think that's going to be the most important thing moving forward, is that you want to be in that position.
Waivers is the easy answer, Kev, but I know the Canucks weren't thrilled with Arturs last couple of summers. Like, did they believe that he had the goods to be able to realize all that potential? Is this trade being made if they think that he can realize the potential at hand?
Well, I don't know where and I don't know what their criticism was. I hadn't heard it over the past couple of summers. He came in, as the goaltenders often do here. Like, I believe he was one of their top fitness testing guys coming off of last summer.
Good.
So, I haven't heard those criticisms. Listen, one of the things that was really tough for him is he made the organization, rough estimate, but fair estimate, $40 million last year. Because he got him through the first round, and in the second round, you keep your gate, and he got him 4 home games. Like $40 million, right? Yeah. Like, he delivered.
Pretty good.
And he may not, but the challenge is, nothing exposes your game like a Stanley Cup playoff stint. Everybody picks apart every detail. And there are things that in his game remain a challenge that the Penguins are aware of. Mid to long distance tracking habits, traffic especially, and how those tracking habits open net versus closing net. And they got exposed a little bit in that Edmonton series. And once they were, like, I know the Calgary Flames came in for the season opener the next year, this past season, which Arturs started, which in retrospect might have been a mistake, but it was his net to lose. Arturs started that game, and they absolutely, number one with a bullet on their pre-scout, was point shots in traffic. And I believe they scored 2 of the 6, or maybe even more than that off of those types of chances. So it is a skill that is really difficult to learn at the lower levels because nothing is like NHL traffic. Nothing. And I've talked to guys around the league. It is the hardest thing to adjust to right now in the NHL is the purposefulness and like the intensity of finding pucks through traffic and the way teams interplay point shots and guys at the net. Not just to like, hey, let's go to the net, but specifically take away lanes depending on how a goalie tends to handle things, depending on the other team's defensive system and where their shot blockers go. Like, it is so dialed and it is so hard. And that just happened to be the area that got sort of called out and spotlighted during the Stanley Cup playoffs. There will be goalies on non-playoff teams that go 3-4 years into their career before something like that gets identified in the way it did on Arturs this year. And so that was tough for him coming into the season because other teams really went after it.
On the plus side, he's going to get his opportunities on a team like Pittsburgh. On the downside, is that blue line going to protect him at all? Like, is he just going to get shelled from not only long distance, but everywhere? And I'm a little bit worried for him on that side. Like, the Canucks may look like they're the winners in this trade regardless because he's just getting shelled in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's quite possible. And as a matter of fact, and this will be, I'll give you a little reality check for Canucks fans that, saw him. And I understand why, right? Like, he had so many big moments and he was very likable and he's so athletic. Like, there's a ton to like there as a goaltender. I understand why Canucks fans are maybe disappointed by the return or disappointed to have lost him. But this all ties in perfectly because I was just in the middle of a top 5 or 10 goalies under the age of 25 in the NHL list for NHL.com that'll publish as part of their, Young Guns series. I believe it publishes Wednesday. And so rather than just do it off the top of my head, I used my connections and I reached out to like 10 of the top evaluators, NHL goalie coaches, directors, and scouts around the league and tried to get a consensus list, right? Well, I use my brains when I have access to people much smarter than me. And so first off, Arturs did not appear on any of those lists. Okay, nowhere in the top 10, and he counts because he's 24 years old. Like, this is just a little eye-opener for everyone. But one of the names that did was Joel Blomqvist, the 22-year-old that played in Pittsburgh last year. And you'll look at his numbers last year, and you'll see an .885 save percentage, and you'll be like, oh, that's a tough way to debut. His adjusted numbers were actually one of the only Penguins goalies that was well above adjusted. That's how bad the environment was. That his .885 was the best performance relative to shot quality of anyone. And so, yes, I had a couple of the evaluators drop him down their top 10 list near the bottom with the note, we're not sure he survives the next couple of years behind that Penguins team and that it could be brutal on him. So enter Arturs, and it's actually smart if you're the Penguins, because not only do they have Blomqvist, who is a goalie I believe the Canucks had high on their draft list the year he was picked, but they've got this young Russian kid whose name escapes me right now, but he started in the ECHL last year. They actually hired a goalie coach specifically so they would have someone in the ECHL with him. He came up to the American Hockey League 2/3 of the way through the season and, ho-hum, rattled up 19 straight wins. So this allows them to protect those two young goaltenders who don't require waivers. And that's why I always say, like, use it as long as you can with these guys. Don't burn it. They'll get to stay in the American Hockey League while Arturs takes a lot of bullets in the National Hockey League. Now, the one thing about playing a Penguins team as bad as they are, teams aren't necessarily going to pay attention to the pre-scout the way they do when they're going in to face a cup. Like, the expectations in Vancouver were raised, and teams came in trying to dial in on things. You know, we've seen goalies in like San Jose post good numbers because teams don't try and get to the dirty areas. They don't care. No, they just kind of, like it'll become, other than Sid and Gino and Letang, it'll become Tuesday night in Pittsburgh where, the goalie coach will have that pre-scout, but, it just doesn't get the same attention that that the Flames gave it coming into game one. We'll just beat them. Yeah, and exactly. Sometimes that means a lot more shots. I know I say from the outside, but sometimes it's one of the few times where, like San Jose last year, actually their goalies faced a ton of low-danger chances because teams just didn't grind and dial in on it.
Right.
Sergei Murashov, I think, is the goalie you're thinking of in Pittsburgh. Moving on. So answer me our Whistler Golf Club poll question then, Kevin. Like, if you had to bet right now, is Arturs Canucks folklore, or is he an NHL starter one day?
Oh,
man.
Is he Troy Gamble? Is he Troy Gamble, or is he an NHL starter?
Well, he's already higher on the folklore list because of what he's done, right? Like the World Championships, the playoff run, as much as it ended in Game 7, like we are JT Miller hitting Nikita Zadorov in the shin away from maybe them making the Western Conference Final in the final minutes. Because I tell you right now, Stuart Skinner wasn't even looking at that shot. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I can't. If I could answer that question, I'd be making a lot more money working for a team.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And to be clear, like everybody's here is rooting for him. Like I thought the kid was a breath of fresh air.
And he has the tools. That's the thing. There are things Arturs does that not a lot of goalies can do. Can the Penguins? Can they? And I know they've already got a plan in terms of getting him on pucks and staying on pucks from a distance. Can they unravel that and help him with that? And buy him enough time to sort of find his legs. That was the one thing that was never going to happen here because it's win now. But the traffic stuff just takes time. And I think he's going to get it in Pittsburgh. So I would not put mortgage payments on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this kid, shows us up. And I don't know NHL starter guys, but can he become an NHL regular? And if you think about where he started from a draft perspective and all that, like it may not end up being found money in Vancouver, but the expectations got raised based on some of the things he did in these tournaments and in the playoffs, perhaps unfairly to what the roots of what he was drafted as.
That's right, and he's already outperformed that. On Demko, Kev, Blake and I have done our utmost to explain sort of the risk that both sides are undertaking here. Did you understand that contract extension that he got?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did, because if you believe that you can get him playing even 45 games on a consistent basis, healthy, at $8.5 million, I was a little surprised by the number. But then again, one of the reasons, I should say I was surprised by the whole thing. I don't want to try and rewind history. I didn't think it was going to happen. Both sides said they wanted it to happen, which is all fair and good, but I didn't think it would happen, right? And I was on the record as saying that because I thought the ask would be higher than the risk they'd be willing to take. So I'm surprised by the number in that I didn't know they'd go that high. And I didn't think Demko, frankly, would do it for much less. So this puts him at the same level pay-wise as a lot of his peers of what he's capable of doing, what he did 2 years ago, right? Vezina caliber goaltending. And frankly, what he did the year before that, which nobody could see because under Bruce Boudreau, his adjusted numbers in the Vezina finalist year and the year before were very similar. It's just we couldn't see it because they were giving up all these chances under Boudreau. So I understand it. I think more of the risk goes on the Canucks just because, and again, one of the insurance policies just walked out the door. So if either guy is hurt, if Demko misses 6 weeks, we've seen what happens if you overplay Lankinen, and you still need a guy. Maybe it's Yuri Patera, who I think people have kind of forgotten is, I believe, still under contract for another year in the American Hockey League. Yeah. You still do need another guy. So the risk is on the injury for the Canucks. You're paying him at a Connor Hellebuck-like level. If you get 45 games of elite Demko, I'm on the record in the past as saying Demko at his best has the potential to be the U.S. Olympic starter ahead of Connor Hellebuck. I believe in the talent that much. It's just that even before the most recent injury and all the headlines it generated, all the seasons prior, it was hard he didn't make it through. He didn't make it to the finish line healthy. And so that is, frankly, a fair question mark at this point about whether that can happen. If you get it, you have elite goaltending locked up for 3 years at the price of elite goaltending. But the risk is you don't get it. And I think 45 games is fine. But the risk is you don't get it for 6 weeks at a time more than once, even once a year. Yeah. And now you need Patera or Tolopilo.
Are those your AHL goalies? Because they've got 7 goalies under contract. 6 of them are in North America pro hockey already. So
they've run 3. Yeah, they've run 3 in the American League for a couple of years, Blake. And I do think when they signed Patera, one of the things they liked about him is they felt confident enough in his game. Now, I don't know what happens after. He missed so much time last year, and I should probably text him and ask him how he's feeling. But I know he was skating at the end of the season. I know he's really well liked. He fits. He wasn't a guy that was going to ruffle feathers or need to play a lot to keep his game. So it allowed you to keep playing some of your prospects while still having an NHL. They believed an NHL capable insurance policy. And so I would imagine that still applies, again, not having
Ty Young will stay up with the other 2 guys.
Yeah, I would think so. And listen, Ty, what a great story Ty is. And also, if I could, a bit of an indictment. Everybody wants to know what's wrong with Canadian goaltending. And I've kind of maintained for years the CHL is part of what's wrong with Canadian goaltending. This is a kid whose team couldn't, nobody wanted him. Nobody wanted Ty Young in the CHL because they didn't see him as somebody that they would spend a 20-year-old spot on because you're limited in how many you could have. And now you can make the argument from a development standpoint, okay, well, that opens up the spot for another goaltender, younger goaltender. But in the CHL, if Ty Young, who had a 9.26 in the ECHL, and goalies for generations have told me the hardest jump is first-year pro to AHL or ECHL. It's not up to the NHL. It's that first-year pro is the hardest jump. And he posts a 9.26 and goes 8-3 in the AHL as a 20-year-old, but he wasn't good enough to play in the CHL this year. In the CHL, Honestly. Your development window is a year and a half, 2 years. Maybe you get some starts. Maybe you're a starter at 18, like Medvedev will be. And then you get your 19-year-old season. But it's way too small. And the NCAA is going to artificially extend it now, so it'll be okay.
And the crazy part is he lost his job in Prince George to Ravensburgen, who went in the first round this year. There was probable cause as to why he got forced out of that crease.
Listen, I know Prince George tried. They just, they couldn't get a taker. In a way, it was the best thing to happen because otherwise he can't go to the
exactly.
ECHL.
No, it's good. It's good. Lastly, just what are you hearing on Medvedev, their second round pick?
They're excited. And so when you look at this depth chart they've built, Don't sleep on Asku Koskenvuo as well. Aku is, I know his numbers didn't translate necessarily at Harvard, but there are elements of it. This is often what happens, much like Ty Young. Like, they don't draft them based on the success at the level they play. They draft them based on attributes they think will translate at the pro level, and Aku has them in spades. So is he on the same path as Young, start in the ECHL, have a lot of success? How quickly does he move up the ladder? There's a game reading and gameplay element in his game that still needs to be answered, but all the tools are there. And then Medvedev, like, at the end of the day, Tolopilo, Young, like, Medvedev may end up being like the sort of prime prospect. He may pass them, but you have to have patience because there's a lot of time left. And he's skinny as a rail, but you can see the arms, the length. Let's put it this way. I pulled Marco Torrenius aside at development camp and asked him what he thought of young Medvedev after the first couple of skates. And the comparisons he gave me without thinking about it, and this is his length and his ability to access edges from his knees and still stay mobile, was Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, I'm not saying he's Andrei Vasilevsky, but he's like, the way he moves from his knees and the way he's able to access power and control his edges, he's like, that reminds me a little bit of Andrei Vasilevsky. And these Russian kids, man, like, Medvedev talked about it, man. All they do as kids, they don't stick them in goal and teach them the reverse VH. The goalies just skate and skate and skate. No pucks, no shots. I know guys that are in the NHL that remember those sessions with tears in their eyes. Like, but they learn how to move rather than worrying about stopping pucks. And there's some lessons there in terms of how we do things here and how we emphasize winning and stopping pucks and technique at far too young an age. But this kid, yeah, he's promising.
Amazing. You always make us smarter on goaltending. Thank you for your time, Kevin. We'll see you on the golf course here later this summer. Appreciate this.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
So, Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. We join with Canucksarmy writer Dave Hall as we discuss this Vancouver Canucks trade, the player coming in and the player coming out. How are you, Dave?
Doing great, thanks. Yeah, it's another beautiful week in July, and we've got a trade to talk about, so why not, right?
What was your gut? What was your knee-jerk reaction to it?
I mean, you know, I'm like many, I've been kind of prepping myself for something like this. I mean, my initial reaction, in all honesty, was I was kind of shocked that they even got a player out of it, right? Like we saw Caden Primo, get a 7th round pick. We saw Danil Tarasov over in Columbus, net a 5th round pick. And so I was kind of expecting somewhere around the 4th round to 5th round pick, area. So I think the fact that they got, a right shot winger, just 22 years old, I thought it was some good business. He doesn't bring the most, NHL positive upside, but at the same time, at least he's a player for the organization, which I think at this point is a plus.
Yeah, tell us more about Chase Stillman, because he's a first-round pick. Like, you tell me, how did he get into the first round in 2021, 29th overall? Hasn't done a lot of scoring in the AHL since. Yeah,
and like in my opinion, I think it's probably a little bit unfair for him that he went in the first round. He was probably one of those players that probably could have slipped to the second, and he wouldn't have so many lofty expectations on him. But he's a player that, as you can see from what we're looking at right here, he's never hit a point per game, even at the junior level. So offense is a little scarce. That being said, he does have a nice shot. When he does score goals, he's scoring a lot off the rush. He's got a nice little snapshot there. But for him, what you're banking on is his motor. He's just a never quit Energizer bunny. And he hits, he'll drop the gloves if he has to, and so and he's a right shot center at 22 years old, right? So while there's probably not a lot of offensive in the tank, you're still hoping that maybe you can get him in the system and develop it a little more, like you have with so many other players in the system right now.
That seems to be the theme from the draft itself. Now players like this too, is they just want guys that work hard, and we'll see if that ends up biting them, because you do want skill as well, but they want that baseline of work ethic and compete, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the one thing, or one of the things that you can't really teach is that, never quit attitude. And so he's got that in spades. And you're right. It's the perfect example of how they've been drafting. You're totally right, especially this year. That's basically what every prospect that they drafted, all 6 of them this year have in common, is just a nonstop motor. And so he fits that mold. And like I said, not a ton to bring a ton of NHL intrigue, but you never know. There's still a little bit more gas in the tank. 22 years old, they've done a pretty good job at developing these kind of players. So
and how bad was Utica this year too, by the way, where he played?
Yeah, exactly. And then, he did get a trade to Wilkes-Barre Scranton halfway through. And so then he's navigating a new environment, right? So I just think, he put up decent numbers in his rookie season just 1 year ago, right? I mean, it wasn't blaring off the page, but 24 points as a rookie in the AHL is not too bad at 21. So there is some in the tank, and so maybe you're chalking this year up to just a couple unfortunate bad team, new environment, as we mentioned. So yeah, maybe there's a little bit more in the tank.
Will you miss Artie as much as we miss Artie already?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's probably where most of the angst in this trade is probably going to end up being, right? Like, you can't be too mad. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, Arturs Silovs had a great AHL career. He was a fantastic goalie with some potential, but at the same time, he hasn't really proven much at the NHL level. And so I think when people are getting, a little upset about this trade or, sharing their emotions, I think it's based on just the fact that we've grown to love him over here. He's already party. We've and that is the one loss of this whole trade, is that you spend 6 years developing a player. He's this great story from a 6th round pick to a Latvian medalist, a Calder Cup winner rather, an MVP. So it's a long time coming just to have a 4th round pick and a Chase Stillman coming back, but at the same time, if you do like the player, you're excited that he's more than likely going to get an opportunity in Pittsburgh now.
And personality. You're going to miss some personality.
That's
as well.
for
pizzazz. Sure. That doesn't hurt in the dressing room at the AHL or NHL level, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So answer me this, Dave. Where would your comfort level have been if they decided, you know what, we got good work out of Lankinen, we're going to ride Demko and Silovs going forward, as opposed to what they're doing, which is riding Demko and Lankinen?
You're still gambling. We still don't know. We still don't really know what Arturs Silovs at the NHL is, right? Like I said, he just went on a fantastic run at the American League level. Like, it is a big jump, and we just don't know what he really is at the NHL level. So if you really want to make something of your season, I just don't know if that's the smartest decision. As of right now, as long as Thatcher Demko is healthy, the Canucks have arguably a top 3 tandem in the league, right? Like, it's a winning formula, and I don't think you can bet against it. We all love Arturs Silovs. He's a great American League goalie, but for me, we just still don't know what he is at the NHL level. So the
calculus would have been, you get $4 million in cap space, and that's another player. But does that player affect change in a game, in an NHL game, more than a goalie can on any given night? And these two particular goalies, who, when they are at their best, are probably top half of the league goalies, both of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you are right. That is one thing that, I didn't mention, is the cap space and whatnot. But like I said, like you said, sorry, is that a needle mover that's really pushing you into the playoffs more than this tandem could? So. Yeah.
And of course, the other thing is, if Artie had shown that he could be an NHL backup, like be a good goaltender despite the periods of inactivity, getting dropped in every 10 days, however long it is.
Casey DeSmith.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. If Artie is a Casey DeSmith style goaltender where you can play him a couple of times a month and not worry about him, I think it's an entirely different equation, right, Dave? Yeah. It's just that he struggled when he had to sit and watch and then get dropped in the early part of last year's NHL schedule.
Exactly. Like, we've seen what he can do on a night-to-night basis when he's really getting rode in there, and he doesn't get a chance to just kind of sit and take it in. But also remember, we can complain till the cows come home, but they've got a guy like Ian Clark, giving his opinion, and I tend to not really doubt when they make a decision based on the goaltending situation, which is why, I didn't question the 2nd round pick for Medvedev. I just figured, what, if Ian Clark says it's good, I'm going to assume it's probably good. So this is probably just one of those situations where he must have given the green light and said, what, I just think at this point, Lankinen and Thatcher Demko is the way to go. And
I think you're spot on there. One last Abbotsford question for you from me, Dave, but Linus Karlsson would require waivers because of the incredible Calder Cup run he had. Do you see him starting with the NHL Canucks, either on the roster or in the lineup, to protect the asset?
It's tough.
Has he earned that?
I personally, I would love to see him on there. It's just when you look at the right side, when you look at the roster as general right now, it's kind of hard to see where he fits in. So I think, if a trade happens, then absolutely, I think he's on the radar. But I also, we love Linus Karlsson, and we saw him on a night-to-night basis as an Abbey run. But is he really a guy that's moving the needle where an NHL team's snagging him up to play in the NHL? I don't know. I think he's a really good player. I think he's shown a lot in this AHL run, but I just don't know if that's a thing I'm really worried about at this point. I just don't know where he fits in.
Yeah.
I think Bain squeaks through. Karlsson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I sort of sense it. But what do you think, Dave? Do you think Baines gets claimed before Karlsson?
I don't know if either get claimed. I don't know. Linus Karlsson, a 24-year-old bottom six likely guy, doesn't really kill penalties. I don't know. I just think there's probably a lot of Linus Karlssons out there.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I could be wrong, of course. I'm not as concerned as I would have been with a guy like Arturs Silovs trying to get through, right? I don't know. It could happen. I think you could maybe squeeze him at the starting of the season right after training camp where, guys are still trying to figure out their rosters. But at the same time, I could also see him making the lineup. So that's where it's kind of tough. I do think a trade needs to happen for that to happen at this point, somewhere on the wing. But
well, we're going to see in the fall, and that's the fun part. As was this trade, as was this conversation. Thank you for this, Dave. Have a marvelous summer if we don't catch up before then. And
absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
So, Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center game night. Make it a game weekend. Turn that ticket into a downtown getaway. Enjoy an exclusive Harrison Price rate here at the Wall Center. Call 604-331-1000. Say you heard it here. Some blackout dates apply based on availability.
You went full Martin Reddy there. Weekend.
The BC Lions on the weekend bring back the roar. They beat Edmonton 32-14 in the Alberta capital before 17,560. A thorough victory in all three phases for BC. Net offense, 519 to 160 yards.
The most time with the ball for any CFL team all season long.
Well, and the second most since they began keeping the stat in 1996 time of possession. Nathan Rourke completes all but 4 of his 30 attempts for 345 yards and 2 scores. James Butler carries 30 times 30. You never see that in the NFL anymore, let alone the CFL, for 172 yards. Keon Hatcher, 9 grabs, 130 yards. BC rolls up the stats in the offense, improves to 3-3. Butler's 30 carries, second most in club history, most in 57 years for BC. And, hey, was really worried about this offensive line going in. On Andrew Pearson did wind up starting at center. George Una at right guard. They helped pave the way. Job well done. Terrific. All phases, and particularly with the number of injuries they had and guys playing in different spots. Really well done by the coaching staff here as well. 3-3.
The two BC place tenants are going in different directions here, and are restoring faith or destroying faith, I guess, in their different directions here. I was really worried about this Lions team. I really was. Not because
I was starting to get there. Yep.
Not because 1-3 is bad mathematically. That math, no, that's neither here nor there. 1-3 is eminently surmountable. I just didn't like the vibes. I didn't like the look, and I don't mean vibes as mean toxic. I just mean I didn't like the winning vibes. I didn't feel like there was danger there on either side of the ball. And now I'm starting to see something, and there's starting to be signs that maybe they can be a winning team. Now, a championship team, I don't know, but a winning team, winning record, I think we can see that now.
Well, we talked about it Friday. They risked falling into last place if they lost this game. You're talking about a first-time general manager, a first-time head coach. You were right on the razor-thin limit of 7 Canadian starters. But now they're 3-3 with 4-1 Saskatchewan coming here to town on Saturday. The upper deck is open for that game, expecting a good crowd. And the Riders coming off their first defeat of the season to Calgary after that game was delayed overnight by air quality issues.
And Calgary's surprising.
Calgary's very surprising. Very surprising.
I mean, it's still anybody's West here. The Lions are anything but done.
Saskatchewan was the only undefeated in the CFL. Not so anymore. And look, a cynic may look at this Lions team and go, oh, okay, well, they got 2 wins against Edmonton and they got 1 against Montreal, and really they got a good turn there from the clock operator. The glass half full says, hey, they won 2 of 3 on a 3-game road trip, which is very rare in the CFL, right, to play 3 straight on the road. And, the games they've lost, you can chalk up as much to Nathan Rourke's being unavailable and having to play a backup quarterback. So, yeah, get this one against Saskatchewan on the weekend, and all of a sudden, now we're cooking if we're Buck Pierce and the Lions. Whitecaps were fodder in Colorado. They lose the Rapids 3-0, and they fall to 3rd place in the MLS West. That is the first time we've said that all year. In fact, this is the first time they've been functionally out of first place in the West, because even if they win their game in hand now, they would still be shy of San Diego for first place on points. They were down 2-0 at halftime, and that was with Yohei Takaoka making a save on a penalty. White, Utvig, Vitae, Berhalter all had chances. Of course, White and Berhalter back from U.S. duty. Nobody could convert. They've lost 2 MLS games in a row here by 3-0 scorelines, Blake, and they've lost 4 of their last 5 MLS matches. Head coach Jesper Sorensen saying they'll have to regroup and come out stronger Wednesday against Houston.
They've lost more than all that, Matt. They've lost mojo. They've lost the swagger. They've lost the ridiculous chemistry they had in the first half of the season, where when they got chances, they buried them. And you talked about some of those, like Brian White is 1v none against the keeper. That is slotted home every single time by Brian White. It wasn't this time. Yohei Takaoka, he stops a PK, but he also shovels the 3rd goal into his own net. He's got to be better there as well. But, they are all out of sorts. And I think the international window is a really easy thing to blame. And I think in most cases, it's the actual thing to blame. Like, they had injuries, they had departures. A lot was asked of them. But now people are starting to come back, and you've got to try to find a way to get back to what you were doing.
And I hear you, Blake. As Jesper said following the game, sometimes you have to take a step back in season before you take a step forward. It was never going to go 34 games in a row of that sort of incredible chemistry and performance, execution, style, panache. I mean, they had everything going for them earlier in the year. You knew a swoon was going to happen at some point. Into Houston on Wednesday, I think the best thing I can say there is at least you're playing Houston at night, not in the heat of the Texas afternoon. And then their first ever visit to San Diego, and that stadium looks like a whole lot of fun. The people in that community have really taken to this new expansion franchise. They're there Saturday, so no rest for the wicked here. We talked about the Whitecaps and Lions both on, like, for reasons that still escape me, because it's not like BC Place is chock-a-block with events, but Lions 3 straight road games, Caps 5 straight MLS road games.
The big question, Matt,
they got 2 more this week.
The big question is Pedro Vitae a Vancouver Whitecap through the end of the week?
Well, there were reports that he was signed, sealed, and done and off to Pumas on the weekend. Well, it turned out to be either inaccurate or premature, because there he was starting for the Caps.
And that was one of the preeminent Mexican insiders making those assertions.
Yeah.
They're all.
He may just
fallible.
be ahead of the game here. Yeah. So we'll see what the next couple of weeks bring here with the transfer window opening. The Vancouver Canadians are off the All-Star break on a loss in Hillsborough Sunday. That snapped a 4-game winning streak for them. They're also set to lose star pitcher Cal Stephen. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's getting promoted to AA New Hampshire after dominating the Northwest League in a most deserved promotion. But we could see a local kid here pitching for the Seas soon. The Blue Jays draft Abbotsford's Micah Bucknam today in the 4th round, 112th overall at the MLB draft. He started his career at NCAA powerhouse LSU, who won the national championship this year. He transferred to Dallas Baptist University, New Zealand born. An interesting story here. And college pitchers do tend to advance reasonably quickly. So I would think in the next year you'll see Micah on the bump at Nat Bailey Stadium. And then in the 5th round, the Jays took Coquitlam's Tim Piacentine. He's a third baseman. He's playing his amateur baseball at the Okotoks Academy in Alberta. He has committed to the University of Miami, Florida. We'll see if he gets their slot value on his draft selection. How about this, Blake? Go in the 5th round these days. The signing bonus is $500K.
Holy
USD. I know.
Really?
It is really big money now down through the Major League Baseball draft. Piacentine, big third baseman. A lot of hope for that bat. Seas are off till a Fortis Friday nooner versus Spokane. It's the Northwest League All-Star break. Post-game fireworks on Saturday, so get there for the Friday nooner. Should be lovely. Then your post-game fireworks Saturday evening now. We're in the evenings for these Saturday Seas games now that we're in the dead of summer. Get your tickets 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. How about the Seattle Mariners? They sweep baseball's best team, take 3 from the Tigers in Detroit. Julio Rodriguez has homered in 3 consecutive games now. He pulled out of the All-Star game.
He heard the criticism, and he's like, okay, exactly. I'll play like an All-Star. Yeah.
Polanco and Cole Young, the rookie, go back-to-back with home runs in the 9th last night to lead the Seattle victory. Sadly, Cal Raleigh was coming up in the 9th inning with a chance to tie Barry Bonds' record for the most home runs before the All-Star break. They intentionally walked him. Boom.
Cowards.
Yeah, exactly.
Cowards.
Now, he was a problem for the Tigers all series long, much as he's been a problem for everybody in the American League all season long. He hits a grand slam Friday into the bleachers, and some Tigers fan decides he's going to throw it back.
Some Tigers fan?
This is Livonia, Michigan's Ryan Kessler, former Vancouver Canuck. There's the mean mug you know, Blake. That's the mean mug that Blake Price knows every time you want to Kess for an interview. How about that? I do wonder whether people were aware that, hey, that's a former NHL star.
By the way, he's looking pretty fit. That was
great.
That was not a retirement
sit
back in the Barca lounger, Ryan Kessler.
No, we had him on the show last year with the Canucks in the playoffs. He was talking to us about coaching his kids and staying involved in the game. No, he looked fantastic. Great to see Kess, and great to see Kess. First of all, he's a bleacher guy. Huh? Is that not fantastic?
No,
all that money that Ryan Kessler, he's a bleacher. He wants to go out there and sit with the people and catch a home run ball.
That's a good point.
Attaboy, Kess. The M's scored 35 runs in this series. It's the most in a 3-game set for them in 23 years. They're now 5 back of Houston in the AL West. Jays lose 2 of 3 in Sacramento. Limp into the All-Star. I think it's because it was Sacramento. There was just no atmosphere. They're like, is this really in a Major League Baseball game? They're 2 up on the Yankees. They're 3 up on the hard-charging Boston Red Sox.
10 in a row for the Red Sox.
10 straight. And a really good turn for the Mariners at yesterday's Major League Baseball draft. Both the Washington Nationals and the Los Angeles Angels, picking ahead of them, went with prospects who were going to give them a deal on the signing bonus, which left the 2 best players, by most scouts' opinion, available for the M's. They took LSU left-hander Cade Anderson, 3rd overall. A lot of people thought he was the best player in this draft. So the pitching pipeline continues for the M's. The Jays took a Mississippi shortstop by the name of JoJo Parker. Everyone loves the bat. 8th overall. And if you are interested in the sport of baseball, and Blake, how about this? We sometimes talk about the history of baseball. Shout out to our friend Stu in Statistics. He sent me this last night. The Pittsburgh Pirates lost the game yesterday. They now have a 500 record over the course of their history. But this is a very old team. 10,877 wins, 10,877 losses. This is the first time they're not over 500 since 1903.
Wow.
They did a lot of winning in the 19th century, the Pirates did.
They were so good in the 19th century.
Oh, my God.
So good.
That 1891 Pirates team, I will put them against any.
The Cleveland Spiders had nothing. Nothing on the Pirates.
Abner Doubleday himself was like, I've never seen a team better than these Pirates. If you're interested in the Jays baseball, check out the Nation Network's brand new podcast, The Sixth Inning Stretch, featuring three-time MLB All-Star Whit Merrifield, former Blue Jay, Philly as well. It brings you all the inside stories, unfiltered baseball talk, exclusive player interviews, the headlines from around the majors. Lindsey Dunn is hosting this alongside Whit. Every week they're going to break it all down for you. New episodes drop on Wednesday. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, The Sixth Inning Stretch, wherever you get your podcasts, or full episodes on the Blue Jays Nation YouTube channel. Wimbledon, where Jannik Sinner bounces back from that French loss to Carlos Alcaraz, defeats his rival. Men's tennis has a derby. Please, these guys for the next 12 years in finals. Yesterday wasn't quite as gripping as the French Open final, but it was still pretty good stuff.
Sinner's not even there, though, if Dimitrov doesn't pull out, right? So he's down 2-1.
Yeah, he is down. He could have come back and won.
You never know.
The most Wimbledon thing ever happened. The match was interrupted briefly with Jannik Sinner serving because a champagne cork flew onto the court. Alcaraz was none too pleased about it either. You know, this is Wimbledon, right? Like, you weren't getting into that match yesterday for anything less than $20K. And so, you know, if you got that kind of money, you're popping balls while you watch the match.
But
it was
also,
actually
it's a piece of cork. Like, there's a lot scarier, worse things that could happen during the middle of your tennis match. Ask Monica Seles.
Right.
A piece of cork flying onto the grass. I think we can deal with it.
You think we can live with that?
Yeah.
Anyways, there were very harsh critics online that person should be banned forever from the championships. Yes, happened a couple of times actually during this tournament. So they've got a cork issue at Wimbledon. Who knows? Maybe berries and cream fly onto the court next year. Iga Swiatek.
You get a fermenting strawberry there on the court.
Pop a hammy, just like that. The women's final was very disappointing. Iga Swiatek destroys the American Amanda Anisimova. Skunked her. Love and love. It was the first skunking in a Wimbledon final in more than 100 years. So there you go. Like tennis and baseball.
The Pirates were great, and the women's tennis was not.
Exactly. Last time we saw the Pirates were riding towards another National League championship. Whistler poll question results from Friday. Who is most likely to bounce back next season? The options were Thatcher Demko, Nils Höglander, Dakota Joshua, and Elias Pettersson. And the winner is?
Pettersson.
Mm-hmm. Percentage?
70. Ooh.
56.
Okay.
Demko 31, Joshua 7.5, Höglander 6. Vinny, Dakota Joshua, 20-goal season incoming. Would love to see it. What a story that would be. Hockey Badger, Höglander is one of their best players down the stretch. What are you guys talking about? We're talking about a drop-off from 24 to 8 goals.
Yeah, come on. You can be a Höglander fan, but can we please just deal with reality? He was an 8-goal scorer.
Yeah.
Stop it.
There are facts. We do count. Adam, I think being able to manage Demko's workload and all the hard work he's doing off the ice, most solid bet to return to form. Vet says, can't wait for the Canucks to force feed Petey every opportunity to, quote, bounce back while everyone else just sits there and waits their turn. I give it 2 months. That is something. They have such a big investment now and stake in Elias bouncing back.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to get every opportunity. You hope it's not at the expense of other guys who are going. And then Colin in Planning says, the way the question is worded for me, the most likely is Joshua because his bounce back is built on effort and physical play and less so about offense. Those are more achievable without the counting stats that are required for the other players on that list.
I'll say Demko because we're led to believe he's 100% healthy. I don't think anybody's ever questioned Demko's ability.
Correct.
It's just about health.
Yeah. For me, it was Demko or Höglander, and that was the case for Thatcher.
Yeah.
Errors and omissions from from Friday's program. I screwed up the Easter egg with Jeff Merrick. I gave him and Blake poor information on the answer, who was Jay McKee. Jay McKee played in St. Louis, not just in Buffalo and Pittsburgh. And Blake's camera failed right at the end of our final segment Friday. I think the camera was saying, I'm done here. It was time to start the weekend. Yeah,
done with that
too. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.